where from you are watching, / Let's start the story. She sat at a round table meant for 8, yet every chair around her was empty. Warm golden wedding lights glowed above, but instead of comfort, they made the silence heavier. Laughter flowed across the barn. Glasses clinked, music swelled, but none of it reached Hannah Brooks. On what was supposed to be the happiest day of her younger sister's life, she had never felt so invisible. The wedding was held in a beautifully restored barn outside a small town in Pennsylvania. White flowers wrapped around wooden beams, fairy lights hanging like stars. To everyone else, it was perfect. To Hannah, 30 years old, divorced, wearing an emerald dress she bought last minute, it felt like walking into a life she no longer belonged to. She wasn't a bridesmaid. She hadn't helped plan anything. And now, sitting alone at the edge of the room, she realized she hadn't even been included in the seating arrangements. Families laughed nearby. Couples leaned close. Her parents beamed at the head table, and her sister, glowing in white, never once looked her way. As dinner was served, Hannah pretended to check her phone, seeing no messages, no missed calls. She told herself she would leave early, quietly, before the tears came. Then a small voice broke through her thoughts. "Excuse me, miss." She looked up to see a little boy, no more than 6 years old, with light brown hair, bright blue eyes, and a tiny tie sitting crooked on his shirt. He smiled proudly and said, "My dad says you can sit with us. He says nobody should be alone at a wedding." Hannah froze. She followed his finger to a nearby table where a man in his late 30s stood halfway up, wearing a simple navy suit, no tie, kind eyes, and a gentle smile. "If you'd like," he said softly, "we'd really be happy to have you." There was no pity in his voice, no pressure, just warmth. Something inside Hannah cracked, and before doubt could stop her, she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "That would be really nice." Hannah walked toward them, aware of eyes turning, but not caring for the first time that night. The boy climbed back into his chair, beaming. "I'm Leo," he announced. "That's my dad, Daniel." Hannah smiled and introduced herself. From that moment, the night began to change. Daniel didn't ask why she'd been sitting alone. He didn't ask about her past. Instead, he talked about simple things, how Leo insisted on choosing his own tie, how weddings made him emotional even when he tried to hide it. Hannah laughed, a real laugh she hadn't felt in months. Leo showed her his coloring book, and Daniel calmly shared how he'd been raising his son alone since his wife passed away 3 years earlier. He spoke without drama, but with so much love that Hannah felt something warm open inside her. For the first time that evening, she felt seen, not questioned, not judged, just welcomed. When the music grew louder, Leo tugged gently on Hannah's hand. "Will you dance with me?" She hesitated and glanced at Daniel. He smiled and said, "I'd be honored." Out on the dance floor, Hannah spun with Leo as his laughter rang clear above the music. Her emerald dress moved with her, and for the first time that night, she felt light, free, like she finally belonged. Daniel watched from nearby, smiling softly. Hannah didn't notice her sister until Claire approached during a slower song. "Hannah," she said quietly, "I didn't realize you were sitting alone." Hannah met her eyes calmly. But it's okay now." Claire glanced at Daniel and Leo, something like guilt crossing her face. "I'm glad," she said. "You look happy." Hannah smiled. "I am." The rest of the night passed in warmth. Hannah stayed until the very end, dancing, clapping during speeches, helping Daniel chase Leo across the floor. She felt included again, not out of obligation, but because someone chose her. When it was time to leave, Daniel walked her to her car under the soft glow of the barn lights. "I'm really glad you sat with us," he said. "You didn't have to." Hannah smiled and replied, "I know, but I'm really glad you asked." They exchanged numbers, not with expectations, just gratitude. In the weeks that followed, texts turned into coffee, coffee into walks, walks into dinners, with Leo always insisting Hannah sit next to him. Months later, Hannah would remember that night not as the moment she was forgotten, but as the moment someone noticed her, pulled up a chair, and quietly said, "You matter." Because kindness doesn't erase the past, but opens a door, And sometimes that's all a heart needs to begin healing.